Protection District. I'd like to call this meeting to order on Monday, June 18th at 6:05 p.m. First order of business is roll call. Director Smith?
Here.
Director Thompson?
Here.
Director Strobel?
Here.
President Oftedal? Absent. Let's see, Director Young?
Here.
Director Stonebarger? Absent. Okay, Director Langro?
Here.
And Director Morgan? Okay, so we do have a quorum. And I'm going to hand this over to Chief Helmick, who's going to lead us in the pledge.
If everyone please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everybody. It's nice to see you here. Last time we had a meeting here, we had over 220 people. So I am hoping that we've got lots of folks on Facebook. So hello, Facebook Live folks. Thanks for being here. As your newest county supervisor, one of my top priorities is helping our fire protection district become the fire protection district that we all need and want. And I've got to say, I am so proud of Chief Helmick and the leadership that he's bringing on board. And one of those things that we're doing together is trying to make sure that we're engaging the community in the process of figuring out what we need to do to go forward. So I'm here to support Chief Helmick and the rest of the board members on what you're doing, and welcome and get it done.
I'll do my best. All right, well, good evening. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Brian Helmick. I am the fire chief of the Contra Costa Fire Protection District. And to go back a little bit, it was August 9th of this year, last year, that I came and I provided the first state of the district in Bethel Island. And it's been a little bit over a year, and a lot has transpired. I have learned a lot, and for that reason, I'm here to share it with you here today. So what I have on the screen behind me is the agenda that I'm looking to get through tonight, and then we will get to an answer question session, which will identify how that process is going to work. I anticipate this will take around 45 minutes for me to get through the state of the district, and again, I'll talk about the process for doing the Q&A here in a moment. I just want to thank all of you that are here from our communities. There are some familiar faces, and there are not so familiar faces that I hope to get to know. But again, as your fire chief, I really want to get to know all of you in one way or another. I want you to be able to have access to me to identify what it is that the district is doing, what situation that we're in. And tonight is a great opportunity to do nothing more but to get educated on the situation. To be very clear, there are no asks here tonight. That's not the objective. It is to continue the story that we started back in August of last year, and it's continuing on now. I will tell you that I've learned a lot, and to be completely transparent, I have a lot more to learn. We're in a very complex situation. It's been going on for a very long time, and we have a long way to go. I want to thank all the board members that took the time to come out here tonight. If you don't mind, if you can stand so those in the audience can see you. If they have any questions afterwards, they can come up one-on-one. So these are our board members. Please, if you see their face or see them throughout, you can approach them and ask them any questions on the district. But again, I'm available to you also. Tonight, this is what our goal is that we're going to work through this agenda. What I'm going to do is talk about who the district is. There's been some confusion with some of the people and folks that we serve about who we are and who we are not, so I want to make sure to cover that. I will provide a state of the district, which will go into our finances. I'll go into our finances. I will go into our response times. I'll go into what it is that we're doing and where we've been and brought us where we are. And then I will also talk a little bit about our next steps that we're going to be working through. I think one of the components that is very valuable in this is a question and answer session for all of you. We are also on FaceTime Live right now. We are videotaping this, so it'll be archived onto our website, which I'll talk a little bit more here in a second. So we will try, those that are not here, if they have questions, please ask. And if for some reason, this is not the venue or the forum of which you feel comfortable asking questions, please follow up with us afterwards, because again, I want to try to make this as clear as possible. So a little bit of housekeeping. The presentation we have up here tonight, if for any reason it's hard to see, and or if you're online and you can't see it, all this information, you go onto our homepage, you're going to see a flyer for tonight's and the next 4 of these meetings that we're going to be doing. When you click onto that, the presentation's on there, the handouts that I'll be referencing here in a moment in the back of the room. We have some takeaways for you, some preventative measures, some frequently asked questions, kind of a state of the district. There's information on that back table, please take them. There are also flyers. We're doing 4 of these. These are just updates, town of the halls, and then I will be talking about a strategic planning session that we'll be doing in July that we welcome all of you to be able to provide your feedback on the steps forward of when the district gets additional revenue to be able to increase services, how we implement them, what's the priorities, how does it work, and I'll be talking about that. So please grab those, take them. If you forget, they're going to be on our websites and stay up there for the next month and a half. The question and answer process is a very, very critical component. I know, look, I deal with this every day. I should say I work to deal with this every day. It is a very challenging situation that we're in, not only operationally, but administratively. So although I want to make sure, it's not important for me to understand what's up here. It's really important for you to understand where we were, where we are, where we're trying to go, and how you can provide feedback. So throughout this process, we have cards in the back of the room. They're different colored cards. They're the 3x5 cards. You can grab those. You can fill those out, and you can hand them to Bernilda or Gina in the back of the room. They're in the back right-hand side. And then what we'll do is we're going to collect those throughout the presentation, and we'll categorize them by same type question, or it's in the same arena. And at the very end, I'll address them the best that I can. And again, if folks are online, or even if there's folks that watch this once it's been archived and put onto the site, please reach out to the directors. Reach out to me, ask the questions, and we'll do the best we can to respond back to you. So it's a very important component of it, and again, I appreciate you guys being here. So before, just to jump right into this, I want to start off with who East Contra Costa Fire Protection is and who we are not. There's a lot of confusion. Are we part of the cities? Are we part of the county? And the answer is no, but yet we do serve them. So we're an independent special district, which means that we're governed by ourselves. We have a board, and I'll talk about our governance here in a moment. But we have a board, we get revenue, and I'll discuss how we get our revenue and why we don't have enough revenue and what our revenue approximately should be. But again, we are not governed by the county. We are not governed by the cities. We're an independent special district. No difference than you have sanitary districts, you have water districts, and the way it works is that we serve multiple communities. So we serve cities, we serve townships, and I'll identify our jurisdiction here in a future slide. In regards to our governance, is today we have 9 appointed boards. So we used to be dependent upon the county prior to 2002. We were primarily a volunteer organization. And in 2002, we consolidated and we went career and or combination. So we had volunteers and professional firefighters. There were a lot of influencing factors of why those reasons happened. Volunteerism throughout the nation, not only within our area, was decreasing. In addition, as the population was growing very rapidly. And so when you have that growth, we converted from a volunteer system to a career system, and it's continued to expand over the years. At that time, when we were appointed, when we became an appointed district, we had 9 members, and the way that worked is that we have 4 members that are appointed. It was done by governance in regards to population. We had 4 people appointed from the city of Brentwood, we had 3 appointed from the city of Oakley, and then 2 appointed from the Contra Costa County Board of Supervisors. And again, it was done by population. So they took our population groups, and then they identified how many people would elect to represent the people within that region. From 2002 to 2010, the community made it very clear, and even to date, that they wanted an elected board. They wanted local control, they wanted an elected board, and one of the criticisms we've had of recent is the fact that we haven't gone into an elected board. With that being said, we just passed Measure A that identified that we asked the public if it was okay to reduce our board from 9 to 5. It passed at 91%. You saw that earlier in the year. And then now in November, we are going to be going to the board, we go out to the people, and we're going to be doing elections for 5 elected members, and we will have an elected board and they'll begin business in January of 19. And that's a really big deal about governance for us. But again, they're an independent special district, and we're governed by a board of 9 and soon to be 5. Our chief mission, why do we exist? Why are we here? What do we do every single day? And we protect, we preserve and protect life, property, and the environment with service above all else. We're an all-risk department. Now let me be clear, is we don't have the capabilities to be purely operational in every skill set that many agencies are, but we are the first ones to respond. We're the first ones to identify. We're the first ones to call additional resources if needed. If we can't have the resources in district to mitigate it, we call mutual aid or rely upon outside agencies. But when you call 911, if it's on water, if it's on land, if it came from the air, if it's hazardous materials or whatever it may be, we are the ones that respond. We're an all-risk department. Fire, EMS, rescue, we do it all. The overview of our jurisdiction, and this is a key point, again, we're an independent special district that oversees 250 square miles. That's our geographical footprint. It's very substantial. We have a population of 115,000. We run about 7,500 calls per year, 7,530 in 2017. And we run about, it takes about 9,000 pieces of fire equipment to mitigate those 7,530 calls. We have 3 full-time staffed engines to be able to mitigate all of those incidents. That's a lot of volume for having 3 apparatus to be able to do it. The communities within that footprint are Oakley, Brentwood, Bethel Island, Knightson, Byron, Discovery Bay, Marsh Creek, and Morgan Territory. So if you can think driving from Bethel Island into Clayton, or Bethel Island into Livermore, or Bethel Island into Tracy, or Bethel Island into Stockton, and or Bethel Island into Antioch, everything in between before you hit the city limits is ours. That's where we respond. We are the first responders in that area. Very big footprint. We have 3 apparatus to be able to do it, and time and distance is our enemy, and we'll talk about that here in a moment. So you can see on this slide, we have currently 3 fire stations. They're staffed with 3 personnel. We have different types of pieces of equipment inside each one of those stations. They do what we call cross-staffing. We have 3 members on duty, 24 hours a day. They can either go on what we call a Type 1 fire engine, or otherwise known as a pavement queen. It's the fire engine that we all understand. It looks like it's always on the roads. It goes to residential structure fires, accidents, rescues. And then we also have a wildland unit. We call it a Type 3 piece of equipment that goes off-road. It's a 4-wheel drive. And then we have a water tender that carries approximately 3,000 gallons of water. Our members, depending upon the type of incident, will roll tandem, or they'll roll with 2 pieces of equipment. We need to because of our staffing levels, but we will take either the Type 1 engine or Type 3 engine with the water tender with us to be able to go and respond to calls. And it's all incident-based. But the 3 stations we have 1 station off of John Muir Parkway in Balfour and Brentwood. We have 1 off of O'Hara Avenue at Station 53 in Oakley. And we have 1 off of Bixel Road near Point of Timber in Discovery Bay. So those are the 3 stations we have within our area. And I'll talk to you about what the service levels that we need as we move forward here. Revenue into the district is $16.2 million, and that's for fiscal year 18-19. That's what we're getting into. That's where our preliminary budget is identified. And 96% of our revenue, and when it's locked in on Proposition 13, we get 1% of the property tax. And I'm going to discuss this because it's confusing. I mean, I'll be clear with you. I mean, over the last year, it is really important, obviously being the ambassador, the general manager, being the fire chief of the organization, I understand this, and it's not simple. It's not simple. And so today, what I really want to do is break it down and share with you what I've learned over the past year to identify kind of what some of the challenges that we have. So 96% of our revenue, the blue graph that you can see, it's more gray for you on the screen, but 91% is property tax. We have a first responder fee that's bringing in around $50,000 a year. We have Measure H funds. That is a countywide tax that helps us collect and recover for medical expenses and uses. We have a medical director that we pay out of that. It's countywide, but it's 2% of our budget. We have community facility districts. We have 2 of them, 1 in Summer Lakes and 1 in Delta Coves. Summer Lakes we've been receiving revenue from. Delta Coves will begin this year. So we just want to start getting revenue. So that's 2% of our revenue. And the BBID is a Byron Bethel Irrigation District. The county had identified that there was monies being given to another special district that didn't serve another area When they identified that there was revenue from an area going to a district that didn't serve an area, they gave it back to the county. And the county was deciding about how to use it, and they decided between law enforcement, fire, there was a need in this area, and then they gave us the money to be able to do so. If you go on our website and you want to get more into the weeds on this, please do. We have a transparency portal. We have our financial documents go about the district. It's all on the website. There's a 6-page budget presentation that goes a lot more into depth than here tonight. And for any reason, if there's any questions that we have after the fact that we can't get into here tonight, I'm willing to meet, and or we can meet the finance committee to be able to further define this. So this is just a high overview. So of the 96% of revenue that comes from the 1% property taxes, the district receives 8% of that 1%. 8% of that 1%. And I'll explain exactly what that looks like here in a moment and why it's so detrimental for us for revenue. In 2008, the housing bubble took our revenue and it decreased it by 40%. And that's why we had such a major hit. Now we've been able to recover in regards to revenue of where we were, but there's a lot of other influencing factors in regards to the property taxes haven't continued to increase at the same rate that they should. In regards, and I'll get into when we talk about assessed values on homes and what the values are of your home. So what we get, we collect through taxes versus what actually the property is worth. They're two separate things. And I'm going to define why that matters. But bottom line is this, is the revenue, when property taxes drop, or the assessed values of homes drop, and everything is assessed at that lower rate and it locks it in, we lose our revenue somewhat immediately. But when growth continues to increase, it increases incrementally over time. It's protected by Prop 13, how much it can increase, and our expenses, and they do not keep up with that trend. In regards to our expenses, we have about $14.5 million in expenses. We do have revenue over our expenditures. And again, this is our fiscal 18-19 budget in regards to what we were spending. 71% goes to our personnel, and that's not unique. Any public safety agency is going to spend between 70 to 80% on their personnel, so that's not unique to us. We have one-time charges for one-time projects or programs, about 3%. We have county charges. We utilize that for dispatch fees because we have services that are provided to us by Contra Costa County Fire. We have capital charges. That's for our equipment and capital replacement plans, which I'll discuss here in a little bit, and services and supplies. So we have about $14.5 million in expenses. And as stated on the previous slide, we have about $16.2 million in revenue. So we do have revenue over our expenditures, and that is still sitting there. In addition, we do have, I'm not going to get into tonight, but we do have reserves. We did identify some one-time monies in the past, and those are sitting there and not being utilized. I don't address it in the presentation here tonight, but it's good to note, is that a year ago, when I came in as the fire chief, we were 3 years behind on financial audits. We didn't have what is called an OPEB study, it's other post-employee benefit study. It identifies the benefits and how much it costs for ongoing members and retired members. And we didn't have that study done. It's supposed to be done every 2 years. What I'll say is that we have our OPEB study, it got finished 2 months ago, so that we already know, and that's built into our budget. In addition, when it comes down to our audits, as of August, tentatively, we're planning to be fully caught up on all of our audits, and then we'll be working on the year that we're in now that will end on July 1. So what's important is the money that we have sitting in reserves, or what we have that was one-time monies that do not reoccur. Those monies are sitting, and you can go again in the financial documents that I identified earlier, and it's sitting there, and it's going to be communicated to the finance committee once the audits are done, how we use those one-time monies to either to take care of our infrastructure or things we can utilize for one-time costs. So that's our revenue. Now, right now, it costs about $4.5 million, between $4 to $5 million, to be able to staff a station. That's a fully burdened cost. So when you have a station, one of the mistakes some agencies will make, one of the challenges we had in the past, is that what we had done is that we did like a fourth station or another station at all costs, and what we did is we did not take into account everything a station costs us. We just took personnel costs. But when you only take personnel costs, there's a lot of other expenses that go into running a fire district. You need a fire chief, you need administrative staff, you need legal counsel, You need services and supplies. You need to plan for capital equipment replacement plans. Anyone who owns a business, you need to prepare to maintain the infrastructure as you move forward. And so you have to put money away each year. So when you have a cost of expenses, it's really important to be able to, you need to make sure that part of your expenses is taking care of the system. And so that's what we've channeled a good amount of our resources going into right now. But what's important to note is that, I'm sorry, that was mildly confusing. So station costs are $4.5 million per station, but it's a fully burdened cost. So we only have 3 fire stations. So if you were to talk to another organization and say, why does your station cost so low and why is these Contra costs so high? If you talk to an agency that has 30 fire stations, they can take the burden of a station and bleed it out over, and take a portion of it over 30 stations. When we have 3, you got to take the burden and divide it by 3. So our station costs are going to be more than some other agencies. We are, again, as I stated, we have 3 stations, they're fully staffed, and we are financially sound for 10 years. We're taking care of all of our liabilities, we're taking care of all of our infrastructure. The budget that you will find, it is built out now for 10 years. And at 3 stations, we do have a little bit of revenue over expenditures, but we can maintain 3 stations for 10 years, taking care of all the liabilities, responsibilities that we have as an organization. And that's one thing we haven't been able to say in the past, but again, that's who we are. That's us living within our means. But again, it's not adequate fire protection. And I'll describe why here in a moment. So, what is the problem? What is the problem statement for the district? And the problem statement is, excuse me. The problem statement is that emergency response times are far below industry standards. This is not, I don't think anyone's going to debate this. I don't think anyone's going to say it's not true. We have multiple studies that say that our response times are well below industry standards. If you go and look at the presentation on the website, all of the link that I put there, and if you went onto the website and pulled off the presentation and click on it, on our webpage is the full studies. So all the studies that were done, we had, there was a Contra Costa County Municipal Service Review, and we had the Citygate 2016 Staffing and Headquarters Study. And when you look at it in the past, you might have heard the district referencing something called the master plan. It really isn't a plan at all. It's more of a needs assessment. It identifies where we are, where we should be, what we should strive for, but it is not a plan. It doesn't tell us how to get from where we are today and how to build a bridge of where we need to go. But the study very clearly identifies that we did not have enough administrative staff or operational staff, and that study defines it. So we're not doing other studies right now identifying the problem. What we're doing now is trying to do studies and getting feedback and identifying if we get revenue, if we can increase services, what does that look like? So that's there. And again, emergency response times are far below industry standards. So the Citygate report, which is available on our website, it identified that the district will need 9 stations to meet 4-minute travel times from urban and 8-minute travel times for suburban and rural areas. So that's a goal. That's a goal, is that within the, let me break that down for you a little bit. So they're saying within the urban areas, so we would classify those in our communities as Oakley and Brentwood. Okay? Then when you have the suburban areas, you're going to get into Discovery Bay, and then the rural areas are going to be more like Knighton, Byron, Bethel Island, and also Marsh Creek Morgan Territory. But we have response times that we want to meet. Currently, as I previously discussed, is that the district has 3 permanent stations that are funded, and we also work with CAL FIRE, and they are in the Marsh Creek Morgan Territory area. We have a contract with them during the winter months to staff that station, to be able to do it during the winter months, so they're here year-round. During the winter months, there are resources. During the state, they're not. They're a state resource. During the winter months, you'll see them a lot in our community, so we use them for move up and cover in our jurisdiction. And right now, we can't get them to move up and cover because they're doing state responsibilities. One thing I also want to note about this, about the 9 stations. 9 stations are a full build-out of the communities, and we're not there yet. So I'm saying that we need 9 stations. We need to take into consideration that the reality is that we need currently today somewhere between 5 and 7. And I'm working on that as we speak. And I'm going to talk about a strategic plan that we're doing, that we're hoping to have done by December, that will very clearly define not only where service level increases will go, what it looks like if we get additional revenue, and it will also identify where station locations are going to be and the priority to open for operational cover and need. So although we need 9 at full build out, We really need between 5 and 7, and in the next couple months I plan on identifying exactly what that is, and I want it to be very measurable as to why. Not just saying it's this number, but I want to be able to quantify as to why. So response times, why are they important? Well, bottom line is this, is that prompt response times save lives and they save property. But I want to explain why, because I know that having more resource and response times, the question is, well, why are they so important? Let me try to break it down a little bit. So when it comes down to fire service, you need to really think about two separate things. You need to think about the speed of the response. So that means how fast can we get somewhere, and then the weight of the response. So the speed is time and distance, when the call comes in, how fast we get a resource to you. And the weight of it is personnel and resources. How many can we get to you? So if you can get one resource to you, that may be fine in a medical aid. But if your house is on fire, and I need to have 5 engine companies there, how long does it take for the weight, the strength of it, for the equipment and the manpower to arrive? They're both equally important. And it's also important to note, as I've been doing this over the last year, there's a trend that I've seen, and it's I saw it early on, and I'm still seeing it. See, every community within our jurisdiction, they look through the lenses of their community, and I get it. I'm a resident of Brentwood. I was a resident of Oakley. I've lived out here since '98, and I understand when you think about something as a community, but that works if you're a district. A district is a city department to where your city serves you. They're a full-service city or a full-service department. But as a fire district, we're a system. We're a system. So adequate fire protection isn't provided by station location. We have a very dynamic system. Our engines are out of the stations all of the time. So if you're thinking that good coverage equals where the station is, we're fooling each other. The best coverage you have is where the engines are at the time the call comes in. It is a system. So if we have a vehicle accident on Bethel Island Road in Cypress, and we have 2 of our engine companies there and a battalion chief who are landing a helicopter, and a residential structure fire comes in at Bethel Island, at that time you have the best coverage in the district. The people that do not are Discovery Bay and Marsh Creek Territory, Morgan Territory, because everyone was on Bethel Island and Cypress Road. It's a system. We need more resources in the system because the location of the apparatus within the system on the speed and the weight is what is going to give you the level of protection that you need. It's a very critical point. Because I know that I talk to communities, we want another station, And I'm going to talk to you about station locations. I'm going to talk to you about time and distance. But again, you need to think about the speed and response, and we need more resources in the system. That's what's important. Secondarily, it's important where they're located. All right? So response times, this may be hard to see. But this is recommended standards, what we're trying to go for, and this just reinforces what I told you before. It's in the presentation if you pull it out. But this talks about response times for a first alarm. When we talk about alarms, that's for residential structure fire. But within, again, the city of Brentwood or Oakley or Discovery Bay or in the other areas, what we're looking for, and we'll stick to here, is that your first due response time you want to have under 12 minutes, and you want to have all 5 units and battalion chief there within 19 minutes. That's what you're striving for, that's what you want. Okay? Now, what I'll tell you is, when you talk to our response times, these are real numbers. These are our numbers pulled out of our system. These are our numbers for the year of 2017. The way that you read this is that these are the calls that we ran. The lines across represent geographical areas. So Brentwood, east and west, that's obviously the city of Brentwood and some more unincorporated areas of the city of Brentwood, Discovery Bay, Byron, Oakley, Knightson, Bethel Island, Marsh Creek, Morgan Territory. The total calls that came into those areas let you know where we're getting stressed, where we're getting hit. 2,000 calls in Brentwood West, plus 1,500 in East, Byron 966, Oakley 2,100, Knightson 251, Bethel Island 371, Marsh Creek, Morgan Territory 201, for a total of 7,530 calls last year. What you want to look at when you talk about response times is our average response times are 100% of our calls. And they take the average response time for 100% of your calls, but the number, unfortunately, is misleading. And I'm working on this right now, trying to really identify what it is. I believe, again, these numbers are accurate. But what they don't measure is that when we cancel an engine company that's going to a call, that's when it stops their time. So if they're responding to a call and they get canceled, it doesn't add to their time. So why this number over here is very important, the 90th response time, is that time is actually the time from the time of the incident, when they pick up the call, to turn out their equipment, to put it on, to respond to the call, and to go on scene. And what we need to understand, folks, is that we have two numbers. So the 90th response time is between 8, it says the average in total, between 8 and 12. And what I'll tell you is the numbers that you have in the 90th percentile and the average response time is somewhere in between the two. Somewhere in between the two is really what the number is. And every day I'm trying to mine out information to get more accurate to what it's going to be. And obviously it fluctuates. Our call volume is going up increasingly. Every year it is measured. You can see our call volume going up every year, and we will hit over 7,500 calls this year, there's no doubt. And then here's our industry standards as we previously discussed. So you can see across the board, we're well above the industry standards of the time frames that we should get to. And we need more resources. And then, well, let's talk about why does it matter. If this slide is hard to read, it's okay, because I'll explain it to you. But I want to talk to you about delayed response time and why it matters in two ways, with medicals and with fires. With medicals, you're going to have a medical incident or you're going to have a trauma. That means you're going to have a medical situation, cardiac respiratory stroke, a trauma, you get in a vehicle accident, you fall off a ladder, you cut your arm. When it comes down to traumas, time is of the essence, and it's not a joke. The statistics show this all the way back for a very long time. And the mortality rate, people that die from a trauma, we have what's called the golden hour. That is not from the time that we arrive, that's the time that the mechanism injures you or you fall and you get hurt. You have an hour to be on the operating table in this procedure's beginning. And that increases the survival rate tremendously. I understand that mechanisms or what caused the injury, they vary. Some are more critical than less, but if you have a trauma that is critical, if you don't get there within an hour, the mortality rate increases rapidly. So you have to take consideration, you fall off the ladder, you have to call 911, we have to respond, we can start treating at scene. We package, and then we have to be able to get you to transport by helicopter or whatever it may be, by ground, because we have weather. Sometimes we can't get helicopters due to the systems, whatever it may be, but you have to be on the operating room within an hour. And time and distance matters with that. For medicals, when it comes down to a stroke, it's the same thing. Time is of the essence. And we have another hour within windows. We have to arrive at scene. We have to identify your presenting stroke symptoms. We'll start doing things immediately of identifying that you have stroke-like symptoms. We'll try to get medications on board. We'll get you to the right hospital. And we can try to get to a point where you don't have long-term deficits. But the longer time that you wait, you're going to have unrepairable deficits all the way up into death. And that's just the reality when it comes down to medicals with traumas, and also with medicals, time and distance is very important, and that's why it's important to have more resources in the system. When it comes down to fires, fire doubles its size every 2 minutes. Start whatever size of a fire you want it to, as long as it has combustible fuels, every 2 minutes it will double. I know this is hard for you folks to see out there, but bottom line is it works towards an area around 7 to 9 minutes. And in a residential structure fire, we have something that's called a flashover. That is when the whole room is consumed by fire. And if we had any of our members inside at that time, if they didn't recognize the signs and didn't pull out of the incident, it's not survivable for anybody. So when you have 7 to 9 minutes and you have a flashover situation, that's why we're trying to get at scene in 4 and or before. And that's where you'll find that we have a lot more property damage when response times are going out, and potentially life loss too. But again, fire growth is by the fuel and by time. And time and distance is difficult. But how does it really impact us in the system when we don't have enough resources? Remember when I was talking about the weight? It's not the speed of the first arriving unit, but it's also the weight of the response that matters. Is that we do very specific tasks. It takes 5 engines to be able to mitigate a simple room and content fire. That means all the contents in the bedroom, from a candle, a lamp falling on the bed, drapes catching on fire, a trash can fire that extends to the bed, whatever it may be. We need to have 5 engine companies at scene to effectively begin to mitigate that. If it extends into the attic, if it's a multifamily residential, if it's a commercial building, it changes everything. We need more units than that. But we need at least 5. So right now, where we are, is that with 3 engines, and it's not only the weight is compromised in our response model right now, but it's also our speed, is that our members, and we've been training very aggressively with this over the past year, is identifying, do we take an offensive stance and we go and get it, or do we take a defensive stance? And it's all about resources. Because here's the deal. The reality is, when we arrive at scene, and I want to guarantee you this, when I started off when I was 18 years old, and I went to the academy, I was only trained one way to go, and that was offensive. You go and you get, you go, push, push, push. You're doing it trying to do it safe. You're trying to do very calculated, and you're working systematically with everyone else around you to be able to reduce and minimize life loss and property damage. We have muscle memory in it, we're conditioned to do it. But the reality is, with our time and our distance, is that if we get compromised in any incident, whatever it may be, and if a floor would be able to give out and we fall into a basement, if a roof were to collapse, if we get a member that runs out of air and gets disoriented and gets lost, we don't have a 911 to call, we are a 911. So it is imperative that when we take actions, that we try to think, if the unexpected happens right now, how are we going to make sure everybody goes home? So the fact is this: we are very calculated when we respond to a structure fire. Our captains are trained to look at the speed and the weight and the time and distance and where those apparatus are located to strategically calculate their operational tactics on what we do. If you have somebody in the home, if there is a life that is risked, we will risk a lot to save a lot. We will go in, we'll effect that rescue with 1 engine at scene. If we know there's a viable life inside, we are going to go, we're not going to wait. However, when we've identified that there's no way an occupant inside that home, because it's already past flashover, we know it's the affected room, and or we know that no one's inside the home, we have to adjust and say, are we going to go offensive? Are we going to go defensive, which means we hit it from the outside, and or do we go transitional to go inside? And it's all driven by resources. Because we will risk a lot to save life, we're not going to risk life to save property. We don't want to lose property, but we're not going to risk a life to save property. And that's really important. So when we talk about resources within a system, the weight and the speed for medical and for fires is huge. It's huge. And so right now, the jurisdiction at 250 square miles is just too much area to cover. We have too few stations. We have 3 resources that are constantly running throughout the system. And we don't have the funding to be able to increase service levels. We do have revenue over our expenditures, but not enough to be, and this is a key word, sustainable. To have sustainable funding to be able to increase service levels. Now I'm going to talk about some symptoms and problems we had in the past of doing some short-term measures or short-term things that were very detrimental to the organization. Whatever we do, it's got to be sustainable. So let's talk about some of the things that we've done as a district. We did attempt a parcel tax. We attempted a benefit assessment. Those were district-driven initiatives, and they both did not pass. We attempted a utility tax with the city of Brentwood and the city of Oakley. Those also didn't pass. We tried to do many short-term solutions. MOUs or memorandums for understandings. We did FEMA grants for short-term funding to be able to do staffing of personnel. And we did that for a couple of years. You probably saw the stations were opening, stations were closing, stations were opening, stations were closing. And it was all secondary to us trying to do everything we can. We were living outside of our means to some degree, and we were utilizing these mechanisms. They had 1-year cycle or 2-year cycles, and they would end. The critical system issues that the short-term solutions, things that are not sustainable, what they cause, is this very clearly. And it was, we experienced it and we felt it. It was, and I know I've stated this before if you're here in August or seeing other things, and I repeat it because it needs to be understood, is that when you, I don't care the profession, from teachers to painters to plumbers to doctors to firefighters, is that if you get hired in a business that tells you your job is not permanent, that we can only guarantee you a job for 2 years, you're going to willfully seek other employment because you need job security. Secondarily is when you come and you go to an organization that also compensates you at a time before we were up anywhere between like 40% less than agencies within the county. Those two compounding things are critical. And again, industry, not industry specific, but if you go into an agency that can't give you job security beyond 1 or 2 years, and they pay you 40% less, you're going to find another place to do your same skill set. And so from the years of 2010 to last year, we lost over 40 firefighters. We lost over 40 firefighters. Today we have 27. We do not have an employee with East Contra Costa Fire Protection District that has been employed for 5 years and 1 day or 10 years and 1 day. We have a 5-year gap, we have nobody. Because everyone we hired left to find permanent employment and or to get paid competitively. And so when a year ago when I came in, what I asked was, can we live within our means and take care of the system? Because if we don't, we're going to be at 2 stations. And it's not because of funding, it's because of personnel to be able to operate stations. We can't continue to lose our people. Right now, we don't have members testing out. Our members are now a little more competitive. They're still the lowest paid firefighters in the county, but they're more competitive. And so that's something that we did immediately. So short-term solutions cause other issues. We're taking all of our revenue over expenditures and we were channeling it into a 4th station. So I told you, we have revenue over expenditures, and we were taking that extra money, and we were looking for either grants or cities or the county to come and build the delta or the difference in between. And we had 1 or 2 year deals trying to build a bridge to something sustainable, and the something sustainable never showed up. So retention was a problem. We were taking all of our revenue that instead of investing in our capital and equipment replacement plans, and we weren't saving to update our stations, to replace our equipment, to replace our apparatus. And last year, we started getting and seeing critical failures. We had members that wear their gear on their back. Their gear, if it's taken care of, it'll last for about 10 years, 8 to 10 years. All of our members had 10-year gear. They were all going to be expiring. We weren't saving for it. Our respirator protection, our SCBAs, our self-contained breathing apparatus, we just replaced them. We were able to get a grant. They were $240,000 for those. We paid $24,000. We're heavily involved in the grant system now for one-time cost of equipment. We're doing it constantly every month now. But again, is that our SCBAs, they were into their life, which means, and we didn't have the money invested. All 3 of our frontline apparatus, they're in good enough condition to become reserve equipment, but our frontline equipment needs to be replaced. We have a 10 years, 100,000 mile, and everything is closer to 12, and we're well above 100,000 mile on our first out. And we're in the process right now trying to replace them, but we need to save for them. So investing in our capital equipment replacement is very important. We have investigated reallocation. I've spent days at the local and the state level. That's been a recommendation that's come across. There's been a lot of discussions about redoing or changing Proposition 13. There's been discussions about taking revenues from future growth from Proposition 13 and reallocating it to other agencies. It's been made very clear at the state level that what we're dealing with is a local issue, and there is nobody locally. There is no special district, there's no school district, there's no law enforcement agency that wants to channel future growth to the fire district. Bottom line is we can, if people were to volunteer and transition growth to the district, but then they may have to compromise their services and or cut their services. And so it's a zero-sum game. And we're not getting any support at the state level on it. And they say that it's a local issue. You need to figure it out at the local issue. And I'm going to talk about also taxes and what we pay. I live in Brentwood, I live in our jurisdiction. So I'm saying I'm part of the same system as you, and I am open to what we need to talk about. And again, no agency. We talked to all the agencies around. There's no one at the local level that's willing to give us their future revenues to fix our problem. Okay, so I want to focus on really what it comes down to, the brass tacks. Why can't we afford more? I mean, in Bethel Island, I'm going to talk about your tax rates. You guys are paying 18.5% towards fire protection. Why is that not enough? Why doesn't that work? So I talked about our revenue, and I want to go back and focus on that. We're going to sit here for almost the remainder of this conversation outside of our next steps and what we're doing. But this is a really key point that I want you guys to think about here tonight. Is that, again, we have 16.2 million in revenue. You guys have already seen the slide. 96% of it comes from property tax, as we discussed. Proposition 13 locked down 1%. 1%, and it allocated of that 1% to different districts and services within that 1%, and we currently get 8% of that 1%. We're going to talk about that. This is the education I really want folks to look at here tonight and think about tonight as we continue this conversation. By a show of hands, does everyone know what a TRA is, or a tax rate area is, by a show of hands? It's important. It's okay. I didn't know what it was either. I didn't know what it was. And it's important that tonight, if anything else, this is the takeaway to look at. And I welcome any of you to research this. And if you go to the website, there's a link on the very bottom. And it goes and it says, where do our taxes go? And you can double check my math on all this and look at it. But I want to explain this to you. So on your property tax bills, when you receive them, it identifies a TRA. That means your tax rate area. Everybody's in an area. The fire district has 400 tax rate areas in our jurisdiction. Okay? And it's complex. But it's so critically important to understanding our funding and where the issues are that we have. So you have a tax rate areas, and it identifies, and everyone has a number. Now, the situation I'm having here, this is a Bethel Islands resident. I don't know who it is. We blocked out the names. This is all public information. So the information I'm giving you is real. This isn't hypothetical. We pulled out this example by just snapping residents out of Bethel Island to give you these numbers. And I'll also give you how this works in all the areas throughout our jurisdiction. So you can go and find your tax rate area. It's right there on your bill. And it identifies the 1% that's right here. And it identifies what your 1% is. So what your 1% is, and the district gets 8% of that. So you will not be able to tell by looking at your tax bill what we get as a district. You'd have to go into the website, put in your tax rate area, and you'll get something that looks like this. And again, this is the tax rate bill, the tax rate bill that we had of the previous residents. And you can go in and see, well, where are my tax rates going? And you can see very clearly that right here, we get 18% of the 1% for this area within this community, and you can see where everything else goes. So it's important to know where your money's going and how it's being done and what we get as a fire district. But this is what's really important too, is that what we looked at is, and this really I'm working on from the bottom up, but market values of homes, they are not the same thing as the tax billable values. They're two separate things, and they're critically different. What your home is assessed on today, you're not paying 1% of taxes on the rate of that home. And they can only increase a certain amount every single year. It's protected by Props 13. So when the market crashes and they reset and they may adjust your taxes, that is good for the homeowner. It is detrimental for agencies. And when the rates continue to compound, you are also protected that the rate will increase, but it's only by a portion every single year, and they do not keep up with each other. So on the point that we had is on the previous examples, the tax value says the home value, although the market value is $520, because we went and looked, because the county will give you what they believe the current market value is, it says the tax value is $166,000, of which the 1% is $1,600. We get 18%, so we get $140. Okay? So the key point of this slide is that our tax values are not our market values, and we only get 18% of that in this area. But the story continues, and it's important to note. So 18% for Bethel Island is not where the story ends, because again, we are a fire protection district. We're part of a system. And the weight and the speed of getting you resources, it's a system. And so you have to look at it overall. And I'm going to spend a lot of time, trying to really figure this out, so I want to break it down because I need to understand so we all can understand. But Bethel Island tax revenue, there's about $453 million tax billable value for all of Bethel Island. Okay? $4,530,000 go to the 1%, of which the district gets $837,000 from Bethel Island. It costs $4.5 million to staff a station. And so that is where, I know it's 18%, but we have to continue and look at this, that Bethel Island may be very high in rate, but the revenue it generates is low. And there's other areas that are low, and they generate substantially more revenue because of the population. And so when you look at this, Brentwood is 6 point, now I want to, this number, the reason I added it up, because if I didn't have it in there, you grab your calculators and add it up, that's what I did. So I put it there for you. But this is, look, this is educational, and there are things that I did not add, because we went through and looked at all of these areas, and we identify what it is. But there's unincorporated areas of Brentwood, unincorporated areas of Oakley. There's Marsh Creek, Morgan Territory. We just didn't have time to go and mine that all out, which is the reason the revenue is lower than what our income says, is because there's other areas that are not Bethel Island that play into this number. So Brentwood and Oakley would increase, and we'd also have Morgan Territory and Marsh Creek, which is about 1,250 residents that would also add to it. And then you would have to take in the Measure H, our medical funds I talked about, the Byron Bethany, and we add that on there. And when you come out, it's going to be, it'll add itself out. What's important to note is that these numbers also are the year that we're speaking in right now. The budget numbers I gave you are a preliminary budget for 18-19. But these numbers, because they haven't been reset, are 17-18 numbers, okay? And so it's just really important, and you can double check all this online, but Brentwood, 6.48, almost 6.5%, and they're bringing in about almost $6 million in revenue to the district. Oakley, about $2 million, Discovery Bay Byron, about $2 million, Bethel Island, 837, and then Knightson, 332. So again, I mean, it's been recommended to us is detach, let Bethel Island go. To be able to do something with $800,000, to be able to try to staff your own fire department, again, you also don't have the weight. Because if you built something with $800,000, it's not very sustainable. I don't know how far it would get you. But you have no weight in your systems, you probably would have a hard time even getting one resource. And you need to be part of a bigger system, period. So these are very important to understand, is that the revenue of the district and the tax rate areas and how much we're paying into the system. And because it's 18% may seem a lot going to fire, what is actually giving to fire. And we've said that we're going to be opening, we're working on trying to get Station 55 down the street built. We're in the design phase right now, so that's coming. And then once we can identify additional revenue to be able to staff it, I've been criticized about when we get that station, we want this station rebuilt, and I said, hey, you can't. The system is too big, and 55 is the Knightson, Bethel Island closest fire station, but again, that doesn't mean your closest resource. Okay? So when we talk about revenue and reallocating, I think what's also important to know about our tax rate areas is if you take away future growth, and or if you want to reallocate this, which we're being told at the state level, because the state, again, to get cooperation from the state to deal with a local issue on this level, it's not doable. It's not doable. We've been told. And the question is, when you open up that document and you go down, the question is, who do you want to take it from? What service do you want to transfer and decrease levels of services to give to us? And no local district is going to recommend reducing the service levels to you. So it's very problematic. I know there's a lot here, and there's a lot to understand, and that's why we're just continuing this conversation. So again, tax rate areas. Bethel Island, I think you're close to, I'm not going to say you're one, but you don't have a lot of them. I know in Brentwood there's a lot of them, Oakley there's a lot of them, but the bottom line is because the 400 tax rate areas plus or minus is that the district receives about 8% of the 1% that comes in, and you can see what other agencies receive. Other agencies can go from 14 to 15 to 25, and that's why their service levels are different than ours. Okay, so what are we doing now? What I'm trying to do, folks, is very clearly is this, is that I know our service levels are low, but what I'm trying to do is improve transparency to let you know exactly where you are. I want you to understand this to the degree that I do. I wouldn't expect you to. I do this every single day. I try to work on this every single day. But it's to transfer information for you to understand that we're making very calculated decisions. We're being as thorough and diligent as we can. So I want to be transparent. Our website has a ton of information onto it. Our meetings are open to the public. You can go on our website, I'll give you meetings or board meetings, or you can go online and live stream them. Contact information's on there. You have access to myself, board members. I want to be, and I'm open to recommendations. Secondarily is, we've been criticized and recommended and challenged to live within our means. And over the past year, we've done that. We are sustained, we are able to support 3 stations for the next 10 years at the service level we have. We know it's not adequate. And we are taking care of all of our liabilities and all of our responsibilities all the way through. And you can go on our website and look at it, and we'll be working on finalizing our final budget in September of this year. We're investing in our infrastructure, and people will say, man, it looks like all you're doing right now is taking care of internally, and what are you doing to increase service levels? That's a very fair question, and I understand that perspective. What we're doing is making sure the infrastructure and the system can run. We're making sure that our employees, that we're trying to take care of them to be fair and reasonable, to make sure we take care of retention. We have a succession plan for people who are on the calls, and we maintain our historical recognition that our members have. We're trying to make sure that our equipment makes it from point A to point Z, that the stations are maintained, and it would take preventative maintenance to take care of our systems. We're also addressing our unfunded liabilities. We're also addressing all of the financial responsibilities we have, and they're all available within the budget documents that you can see. And we're also preparing for growth. I'm also being challenged of why are you working with the city of Brentwood and working with the city of Oakley to build 2 stations in the next year if you can't staff them? Because I'm not going to wait to get revenue to staff stations and have to wait 1.5 years to build the firehouse. And so what we're doing is, and we also need storage. Again, we right across the street here at Bethel Island on Ranch Lane, we utilize the back apparatus bay for a lot of storage and supplies. We're going to have to start working on surplus and properties that we cannot use any longer. And the goal is going to make sure that the stations that we have, we can't get personnel onto them, we still need them for storage and supply. And then we do need to get more resources in there. But we have to build the infrastructure to be able to increase service levels. And we have also looked at exploring every legal and physical opportunity for us. We brought on a legislative firm. I'm spending about 1 to 2 days a month up at the Capitol. I'm looking at the federal level, the state level, and the local level. Hey, look, state and federal, there's a lot of grant opportunities. And right now, if you watch us, there's legislative updates on every board packet we have every single month. And right now, we're involved with about 4 different grants. And we're really trying to get ahead of it and take care of our equipment and take care of our infrastructure. But I've already explained to you what staffing grants will do. They're very detrimental, because you can't sustain people unless it's a bridge to somewhere. If there's a bridge to somewhere and you have a grant to build a gap, it makes sense. But when it says it's just going to end with no solution in mind, it doesn't. So we are looking at every option that we have. I'm going to talk to you about a strategic plan that we're working on here in a moment. But there's been discussions about reallocation. There's been discussions about emergency service revenue districts. They all come with tremendous challenges. They all come with a lot of legalities. A lot of them take laws to be changed at the state level that impacts the whole state for our area. And that is not, although it can benefit the district, I do not have the capacity, and I do not believe we have the political power to change that at the state level. So right now is that we are trying to champion the solutions. We're trying to make sure that what we do is legally and financially feasible. On our website, you can go onto the home page. On the bar, it says white papers. There are white papers that give you their legal analysis on all the recommendations we've had, and if it's legally challenging, why. If laws need to be changed, what we would need to do. And it's there. It's there for everyone to see. And that link, if you go to the website, it'll take you right to it. We're developing a strategic plan. And this is really what we're going to boil down to conclude before we go to Q&A. The district, for a long time, I talked about all the measures that we had. We were criticized again for, hey, live within your means, stop coming back to us. We have. And we are, and we can. We know it's not adequate, okay? Number 2 is, if we already, the money you have, why is it not enough? That's a transparency issue. I'm trying to make sure that you can see within our budget documents, you can see how we get our revenue, and not just seeing it, but understanding it to the degree that I do. We sat down and talked to a point of understanding. And then you understand how we're spending our revenue and what our plan is in regards to our finances. And another one was, if you got more revenue in the district, how are you going to use it? What's the plan? How are you going to increase service levels? What's your first priority? How much is it going to cost? How long is it going to take you to take? You couldn't answer the question. It's a fair question. The biggest criticism I have right now is what appears to be a lack of urgency. And I get that too. I can understand very clearly from the outside looking in, it looks like I'm not being urgent, or we are not being urgent. And again, I work for the voice of the board. That's who I work for, is the board. They're my boss. But we are trying to do everything that we can, number one, be sustainable, and we want our behaviors to be measurable. And so right now we're working on a strategic plan that started just at the beginning of last month. It is going to work all the way through December, and we want it in place, and we want it to be done before the elected board is put in position. And we want the strategic plan to be very measurable on three things. We want the strategic plan to define service levels and their priorities. What are they, and how would we address them? Number two, because although people may want us to increase service levels, it's important for the community to know that regardless, depending on the service level, it takes time to implement. So if we get revenue today, that doesn't mean you're going to see that service level increase tomorrow, because it may be a station issue, equipment issue, a training issue, a hiring issue. I don't know. Depends on what the service level is. And then how much does it cost today, and how much does it cost in the future? Those are all decision points that we need to make decisions. So the strategic plan is very clearly going to be the plan that when and if the district gets revenue, and we increase our service levels beyond 3, what are those steps that we take that can be measurable? Somebody will hold the document and watch and say, I want to monitor by service level and the increases, how long does it take you, and how much are we spending on this project? So that's the plan. And that is we're working with stakeholders, elected officials. We're going to be sending out a survey to the communities. We're going to have a town hall meeting, again, the strategic planning session in Knightson on July 19th that we welcome you all to. If you can't come, you can participate in the survey. Give us your feedback on service level priorities. Give us feedback on solutions and what you would want to see. But again, we want this plan done by December. We'll talk about that here more in a moment. So our town halls, again, what I'm doing here tonight, folks, and I'm going to be doing it again tomorrow night in Discovery Bay. I'll be doing it in Oakley and Brentwood at the end of the month. The message is going to be the same. You can live stream it. We have a video in case the internet challenges don't work. We will take the videos, we'll put them onto our website so people can go back and look at it. If you're not able to make these meetings, and you want to, if you have comments or questions, you can forward them to the district. We'll answer them to the best of our ability. But I just want to share a story and tell people where we are. And that's what these town hall meetings are. We're doing 4 of these to share our story and hear any feedback of things that we need to explore, address any questions that we can. The community survey is coming out in the next week. We will push it out to all major groups. It'll be on our website. We'll push it out there. If you're on Facebook, Nextdoor, look at the district's website. It'll be accessible there. And then again, we have a strategic planning session. We'll be on Thursday, July 19th at Knightson School from 6 to 8. That will be run by a consulting firm that we've been utilizing to try to put this plan together. It's going to be a very long process. We're going to take all of this feedback and we're going to have some board retreats. We're going to take the feedback and process it. And then I'll come back and do another update later on in the year. And then we will finalize the plan, which will go to the board. And the goal is by October, November, December is for our board, as we work through this process as a community, just to identify again what this plan looks like. The elected, the board we have, the appointed board we have right now, they will approve the plan, and then they will recommend for the elected board to adopt and implement. And we are watching for who's going to be running for elections. Anyone that's going to be running, we're going to involve them into this process. We will know by the end of August who's going to be running in November for any of the seats. And we welcome to be actively engaged in this conversation about how we should move forward and what we should do. On the back of the table is the slide, the flyer you may have seen that you guys are here. It's on our page. Watch for the survey that's coming out. All your feedback is very important. And more information, again, our district website, there's a wealth of information on there about our history, about all of our financial documents, all of our memorandums of understanding, and all of our employee contracts, including mine and all of our members. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Nextdoor, the video that we're doing on this, and all of them that we'll be doing for all of our meetings will be converted. The Facebook's going to stay on Facebook Live, but the video will be on YouTube. So if you have access, you can go on and watch it. If you don't, you can go to a local library. You can get onto YouTube and you can see these. And then we also have board meetings. We have board meetings that are usually on the first Monday of every month, but because of holidays it fluctuates. We have one coming up on July the 2nd. Those are all live streamed. You can watch them from wherever you are. You can go into the agenda, the board packets, and you can watch them. And we also have a finance meeting that's open to the public. It's usually the second Monday, but again, due to holidays, sometimes it fluctuates. And they're all subject to change. We can see that on the website. That is my cell phone number. My business cards are back there. It has my cell phone number on there. It has my email address. For the remainder of this evening, what I would like to do is do a question and answer session to highlight and discuss a little bit more any questions we have. I'm going to have Regina and Brunilda come around and collect those. But again, we're going to continue doing this. I can't thank you enough, and those that are watching, but those that are here, I know how competitive your time is. It's summer months and it's hard. We've been criticized about the timing on this, but I think the time is now to try to get this information out. So we have right now, it is 7:10. It was scheduled till 8. I want to respect everyone's time and get us out of here by 8. I'm more than willing to stay behind and have conversation with folks. Again, this is just a communication continuation. So we're going to collect these. And if you can give us just a brief minute here. How many do we have so far? We have 2? Okay, I'll just take those 2. Okay. So it says, has the district formally noticed Brentwood and Oakley that it is not able to provide adequate service levels? And it says each city's general plan addresses a safety element and congressional consequential. What's the last one? What's the last word there?
Actions.
Actions. Okay. So each city's So each city's general plan addresses the safety element and consequential. So here, I think the word that could be taken out of context is formal. And again, I don't know what the intent of the word formal is. What I will tell you is I meet with the city manager of Rowan and the city of Oakley every 2 weeks. We have, since I started a year ago, to establish that relationship to understand what we can do. I also provide updates to both their councils on a regular basis. The cities, their councils, they are readily aware of this. They're active partners. If you saw in the flyer coming out, Brentwood, Oakley, Supervisor Burgess, I can't thank enough of the support. We're all actively engaged with each other. They are all readily aware. Furthermore, the city of Brentwood is working on a Fire First initiative. The city of Brentwood today has funds to be able to increase service levels that they want to work with us on. And here's the thing, and it's hard to say, but as a district, we have to get our affairs in order. And I wouldn't at home, and I'm not going to end my business life, but with the board's approval, obviously, is I'm not going to ask anyone for anything until I know I've exhausted all of my means and I know exactly where we are and what our need is. And that's what the strategic plan is going to do. And that's why I get lack of urgency is, wait a minute, the city of Brentwood has X amount of dollars to give you increased service levels and you're not acting upon it. So I want to do it once, I want to do it right. And so I need a minute between now and December. We'll define that and we're going to pick that discussion up in January. With that being said, I want to build stations though, to get us prepared. So you can do a follow-up question in regards to formally, but again, the city of Brentwood, the city of Oakley, and the county are readily aware, and even I would even extend myself to say the state level, is people are aware of our situation, how critical it is, and they're looking for the district to define the needs. And that's currently what we're doing. Update on Summer Lakes station opening. Very good question. It's a two-part deal. So there's the building of it and the opening of it. So the building of it and the utilization of it. That has been a very long process. We right now, so when I met last year, we didn't even have access to those conversations and our discussions because there was a lawsuit between the city of Oakley and also with Shea, which all of you probably knew. We've been able to work through that, and now the district and the city, we have design teams looking at the design for it. The board actually just assigned an ad hoc, a design ad hoc, Station 55 design ad hoc to meet. We're meeting at the end of this month on, I believe, the 27th or 28th to sit down and discuss the recommended design and what it looks like. I think we're both eager to break ground, and it's going to take somewhere between 1 to 2 years to build it. But again, it may be closer to a year, maybe 2 years. After that meeting, I'd be able to know in October, I'll have a better update letting you know it's a new build. But we're looking to break ground in Oakley and Brentwood rapidly, because not only for storage, but also to be able to increase service levels. When it's going to open in regards to when we get personnel in there, it's going to be really driven by the strategic planning and the next steps, right? So when I come back and talk to you again, we have a strategic plan. We're going to identify what our revenues will be further defined. We'll talk about exactly what it is that we need to open another station, how much revenue we have on the outside, who wants to source stuff from the outside, what our options are to be able to increase service levels, and we'll communicate all that at our finance meetings and our board meetings. So building it and opening it are two separate things, but building it is first, and we're trying to do that right now. But we're not going to be able to open it until the district gets additional revenue to make it sustainable to be able to run. And that's not the answer you want in regards to what's the day or the time. But that's an answer I'll be able to tell you what our options are when I come back here in September or October to give you updated strategic plan. Is this what I will be able to tell you? Timing may be difficult since it's due to funding, but I'll be able to tell you the order of opening stations and shuttering stations when revenue comes in the district, what's going to be first, second, or third. If we can't do, are we going to consider doing something outside of full fire engines? You guys have probably heard the squad concept or a 2-person rescue type apparatus. We're exploring all of those. And so those will all be looked at. So the building of it, we're trying to break ground now. But then in regards to opening it, we don't have enough revenue to hire personnel to staff.
Is that from the funding for that station is from Shea?
Okay, so the question was the funding for that station, was it from Shea? And the answer is yes.
Okay.
A portion thereof.
Well, what about now they're building all of that Emerson area
Yep.
too?
That's correct.
And then with the Delta Cove.
That's correct too.
They're bringing in so much.
Well, they may be. But, so this goes back to the TRAs, one. And now number two is that there's things called community facility districts, and many folks that live in Summer Lakes know about this. But again, the community facility districts, they bring in less than $300,000 a year to the fire district that we have in both areas. The fees that we receive when things develop and build, it's more of an inspection fee for us to inspect the plans. And then we can put community facility districts onto them. But we don't. We only have them in Bethel Island and Cypress Lakes and Delta Coves. So the growth that we get is income through revenue, and the tax rate areas are what they are. So the growth is going to help, but it also hurts at the same time.
Well, we have this problem. Why does the government keep letting them build more and more?
That's a very fair question. So the question is, why does the government let them continue to build more and more? I'll get to you next question. So when it comes down to, so look, the fire district we do not have the legal authority to call a moratorium on building. We do not have the authority to do a state of emergency. If you go, this is actually one of the white papers. You can go onto the website, because I welcome those questions. And I went right to legal counsel and said, explain to me why. Put it in writing so everyone can see it. And that's why if you go on there. So we can't do a moratorium on building. Here's the thing. There's a fine balance. Because listen, part of the solution is through growth. Remember we talked about the stations, that we need 9, but that's a full build out. So the balance is that 5 to 7, and what I'm really trying to figure out and trying to define, and I'm trying to get with board support, is there's a certain amount of that we are behind for what's already here. Now, is that 5, 6, or 7? I need to quantify that, and I'm doing that through a lot of analysis, through computer simulations, and identifying what is today, looking at our growth, and identifying what mechanisms do we need to build that do not exist today to assure that station, let's just call it 7, 8, and 9, are handled by future growth. Because those mechanisms aren't here today, and that's why we've fallen behind, is because we have. Now understand, a lot of the agencies we pointed to, Moraga, San Ramon, and other agencies, it's not just the tax rates, but they have fire flow taxes. Moraga, they have X amount of cents on every square foot of every home, and they don't have small homes out there. And so they get a certain amount. They also have rescue foundations and other situations that go on top. So to answer your question is, growth. We need to utilize growth to take care of future development and growth of the district, but we have to catch up for what we haven't had in the past to take care of what we have today. And that is what we're trying to work on to quantify exactly what that is. And that's what's hard about these guys is, look, I'm not going to sit here and respectfully blow smoke and tell you guys what I don't know. I'm just going to tell you what I know, and I'll come back and be like, I'll work on that to understand that. But as for today, I'm telling you that we have a gap from what we have, from what we need, and we also need to build a mechanism to assure that with growth, it takes care of the remainder. We've got to get caught up, because the 8% overall for the district is not enough. Oakley's general plan, this is zoning actions, will not be approved if fire service is not adequate. Why have you not told Brian Montgomery that services are not adequate? Well, again, I don't need to tell Brian Montgomery that services aren't adequate, respectfully. Look, there's not anybody, there's not an elected official, there's not a city manager that doesn't know that fire service levels are not adequate. And I'll be respectful to the one that asked, but I mean, again, all elected officials and all city managers are actively engaged trying to figure out long-term solutions on this. That may be a better question to ask them. But as for me, what I can say is I meet with them every month. I do say the update. Just last week, I was in Oakley, and I spent 15 minutes giving them the state of the district. And it's different than this because I gave them what we accomplished since I came in April, what our objectives are for this year, and I did a Q&A for them also. So again, I think the point I want to make on all of this is, as a district, we are doing everything legally that we can right now. And we're trying to communicate effectively what our true issue is. And bottom line is that we need more revenue, and we're not saying the way how to get new revenue. We're exploring every way how to get revenue. And we're trying to develop a plan to implement once we achieve it. And that's what this is all about. Yes, sir.
With the resources we have, it sounds like you're covering a pretty big area. By the earlier figures, you said this district was taking over 7,000 calls a year.
That's
Which
correct.
is about 20 calls a day.
That's right.
And you say you take care of fire and medical. So there has to be a large amount of medical that you guys are dispatching. You know, I don't know what the protocol is, but it seems like every time there's a medical issue, a couple big fire trucks come. And is there a way to split that more? I mean,
That's a very fair question.
And also, another part of this question is, you know, and I don't know how accurate this perspective is, but it seems like in Solano County, they have a lot of like these senior assisted living places, a lot of senior areas, and they have first responders and paramedics who are privatized, but they go out to a lot of these calls and answer a lot of these calls. So is this extra sending these big fire trucks to every medical call? Because it seems like there's a lot of medical calls that you guys are getting. Is that necessary? And is that depleting the financial aspect of it?
So let me address that in two ways. For those of you that are listening, and if I misphrase, correct me if I say this wrong, because I'm going to rephrase it a little bit. But is the fire service, is the East Contra Costa Fire impacted by medical calls? If so, is there other ways to minimize fire engines going to calls, and is that impacting our budget? Is that fair? Okay. So the answer to the question is yes, that medical calls are a large majority. They're between 70 to 80% of our calls. Now here's something also to know, is that we have, if you call 911, we triage every call. Triage means to sort. We sort them out and we identify priority and what they are. We have what is an alpha, which is, my foot hurts. How long has it hurt for? About 3 weeks. We get them. Not even going to tangent, but we get calls for everything. That's a very, very low priority. We may only send an ambulance, or we may delay sending a single ambulance depending upon the need of the system. And then it goes all the way up to what we call an echo. An echo is, my husband or wife isn't breathing, they're in cardiac arrest, they're actively having a stroke. And so we obviously, if we have 8 calls that come in at one time, we're going to put the alphas on the bottom, we'll put the echoes on the top, and we're going to need the resources. Sometimes we're out of resources, okay? So when we came in, I would say back between about 2015, before I came in, my predecessor already started working on that. And what we did is we worked with AMR of Contra Costa County. Now we have, ambulances are managed by a separate entity, not with us, but we work hand in hand with each other. So what we did is we identified, not only through dispatch, understand folks that the services that East Contra Costa Fire goes to and Contra Costa County Fire goes to, there are many types of incidents we will not assign an engine to that they will. There are many types of incidents that they'll send 2 engines at time of dispatch, we'll only send 1. So if you fall out of bed, the only person that's going to show up is an ambulance, unless they get there and say, we need help, and then we'll come. But we don't. So we have, and you wouldn't see unless you were within the system, but we have, I mean, we don't even go like fire alarms. That's usually code 3, lights and sirens, 2 apparatus, we only send 1. Okay, so there are a lot of calls that we go to all echoes, all deltas, and we're selective on Charlies. We don't even go to Bravos and Alphas anymore, unless we are called to support. We need a fire system that goes to all of them. And this is, okay, this goes back to the other question. We also have private systems, and AMR has systems, and they go out. And medical is actually, it's doing better. It's actually doing okay. They're meeting all the required response times for medical aid, but this is where it gets us, guys. Is that understand, if you are stuck, if you are heavy, if you're on fire, an ambulance can't fix that. A fire engine does. So when it is an Echo, a Delta, or a Charlie, it's because we need some piece of equipment or the manpower that are on those engines, and because we respond, we go, we disentangle, we extricate, we package, get them into the apparatus, and then they go. If we aren't there, the ambulance will arrive and say, even if it's chest pain, ambulances will arrive and say, hey, you guys are good. Or, hey, what we're seeing on the monitor and how they're presenting, this is going to go sideways on us. I want to take a rider with us. Which means that they'll say, thanks for helping us here, but I need to go with us to the hospital, so they're going to go into arrest. So 80% of our calls are medicals. We are already limiting the types that we're going to, which is a decreased service versus other agencies around us. And we send engines to everything we need an engine on. Because again, if you're on the 2nd story, if you're heavy, or if you're stuck, or if you're on fire, an ambulance can't help you with those things, we have to. And the reason we take a fire engine, not a smaller piece of equipment, is because you do not want us to arrive at your house when you are compromised, and us look at each other and say, we left that back at the station, go back and get the other rig. We bring it all with us. Because time is of the essence. So we have a big shop that we bring along with us, and that's why a big piece of equipment that goes along. We don't send to everything. How much does it impact our budget? What you see. Again, because we're triaging calls or sorting calls, we only go to the priorities. And the numbers that you have here insinuate what we're doing for fire and rescue and the calls we have to go on EMS. There's a lot of calls that are unrepresented that we don't even touch. We can see it on our, what we call mobile data terminals in our engines. We can see a lot of incidents going on with our communities or ambulance only. But we're not assigned one because they're low priority, whatever the mechanism. Does that address it? Thank you.
Thank you.
You know,
Yes, ma'am.
On Sand Mountain, we don't have fire hydrants. We don't have,
So you guys are, when I say you guys,
yeah.
let me be, so a large majority of our jurisdiction, and it's not unique to Bethel Island, but Bethel Island, Knightson, Byron, Marsh Creek, Morgan Territory, portions of Brentwood, portions of Oakley, don't have hydrants. That's why every single one of our stations has a water tender, and that's why we will tandem to everything. We have already pre-planned. We know, now what I'll tell you though, although Bethel Island's water access and resource of last year has actually increased tremendously. And that's a huge positive, is that our water supply, we have a lot more within here, and there's a lot of community involvement going into that I'm thankful for. With working with the water districts, it's been a process, but there's a couple things here, specifically to the island, that we have done in the past year. We have worked on rapidly trying to get water supply increased, okay? But again, going back to address your question, wherever there's not water, we know there's not water, we're bringing water with us. It's a very challenging operation. Water shuttling and drafting water, it's something that we do.
Can they still get it from the river?
Absolutely, yeah, we can. And so another thing that we've done when it came out since last August is we're working very closely with BIMID, and we have looked at access and egress of all levee tops We've been working on clearance and vegetation removal and vehicle removal. We have people, we've actually gone out and we've tested all of the dry hydrants in Bethel Island. They are now all in our mobile data terminal system. We pre-planned them. We've pre-planned them even to a degree that our members know they're a go 24/7 regardless of weather, and or they're going to be modified due to weather, and or they're a no-go completely because the residents and or the occupancy, even though it's there, it's not being maintained appropriately, their access is being questioned, or we have vegetation or growth going on. And we're constantly doing that, working hand in hand with them, and we're meeting with them at least on a quarterly basis to communicate that, and I think we made huge strides. So our folks are exercising the dry hydrants. We have more water supply. Our access, egress, and vegetation and abatement is getting a little bit better. And let me hit on that before a question is asked. If it's not, I just want you guys to let you know about vegetation abatement. Vegetation abatement has been a struggle for the fire district for many years. We have, since last April to date, we've rebuilt the whole system. I mean, to the degree where the ordinance that drives us the ability to be able to have the authority to do vegetation abatement, it's been rewrote, it's been adopted, and that was done in January issue this year. Secondarily, is we've rehauled our internal system to where now we have a computer system that manages it to be able to expedite and respectfully use our admin assistant's time. We are working on getting a vegetation management partner to be able to abate properties when people do not comply. And we're also going to start working better and closer. We already are with the city of Oakley and Brentwood, but with the county, where we're going to be working with them to ensure that we're working in concert with each other to manage all these hazards. Look, I'll be frank with you, is that we're behind right now, and that's on me. And the reason that we're behind is because I underestimated the amount of time it would take to rebuild the system. I was very confident that we'd have it done by March or April of this year, but the reality is that I think we're flipping the switch by the 1st of next month. Missed the window. I'm a little bit behind, but we are actively already having complaints. We're pushing things through. They're a lot more manual than automated, but the process is moving forward. This time next year, you will find that when it hits March 1, letters are going to be sent out, and people are going to be given 15 days before we come out and start inspecting properties, and we're going to drive that process to the point of abating parcels that are not done, to a point where if you don't pay for it respectfully, there's going to be a levy on your property if we have to take care of it for you. We have a comprehensive program to be able to do that. Yes, ma'am.
Do you work with the planning commission? I mean, it's all great and wonderful when you get all these places in here. But if we can't get off this island, or you can't get on this island, because the roads, you build 450 houses out there, times 2 cars on each one, you got a problem. You got a major problem with all the ones in Cypress down there, of being able to get off and on the island.
Agreed.
So you have to have something this side of the island, this side of the railroad station, to be able to service this area.
And look, I mean, again, you
have to work with the planning commission.
but if we were to put,
They need to make the roads before they make the houses.
well, and I understand that, but here's the thing. If the fire district has only so much legal authority to where we can communicate and we can discuss and we can recommend. Again, that bleeds right into, again, the fire district needs to go to the state to change Proposition 13. Fire districts to go and take care of state issues. Again, it's a local fire department, it's a local area, we're an independent special district. I mean, let me also say this, to be frank. I'm not speaking on behalf of any elected official at the state, but I've spoken with elected officials at the state and the local level. But I will tell you who I can speak for to some degree. Is I can speak for the executive fire chiefs of Contra Costa County, because I'm one of them and I communicate with them. I also participate with the California Special Districts Association, and I also work with the fire departments, fire districts of California, FDAC. All of those folks will not support any mechanism that is going to take away from one and give to another, because you're just transferring the province to zero-sum game. So even if elected officials say, hey, this is the path, this is what we want to do, you have all of the groups that represent the state across the board that do not support that type of concept. I'm hearing this regularly. It may not be popular. Secondarily, so all I'm saying is, I can communicate and speak to, and as a district, we need to do a better job in the planning process of either putting in fees for growth, as I discussed, taking care of future growth. We also need to put conditions on developments, But the reality is this, a lot of the stuff you see didn't start yesterday. A lot of the stuff that we see, it was done a real long time ago, and they have to abide by the conditions that are placed on them at time of application and building. And that's the unfortunate truth. But it's the truth. So we are engaged very clearly in all the environmental impact reports. We are engaged in speaking to new developments. And it's really important to me to make sure that we have an active presence. So we've been working on this for a year. I don't want to misrepresent, like we have this figured out and I'm doing it to the degree that I should. What I can say is that the problems have been analyzed and I believe we're making strides. Tomorrow morning I have a meeting very specifically just with Brentwood, for example, and all code officials in the room to understand that we're all on the same page in regards to the processes. It's a very high level conversation. We may get into the weeds a little bit, and I'm trying to do it with every entity to assure there's not anything that I can do, or I'm sorry, we can do better. So we're doing better, we're not where we need to be, and it'll continue to get better over time. So we're speaking to those, we're understanding them, but a lot of the stuff that folks are seeing today, it wasn't something I approved yesterday, or something I didn't speak to yesterday. This stuff has been in motion for a long time, and I put a stake in the sand starting this year, last year, moving forward, but there's going to be some stuff that I can't capture or go back to, unless it's approved through a measure of some sort. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think what you said, I mean, that needs to be addressed with the planning commission in Oakley, because that's the one who's doing all this, and probably, you know, I mean, they need to realize, like you said, if you're on the island and there's a major evacuation or something, there's only one way in and one way out.
Yeah.
And we've had a lot of problems with that on Cypress, trying to get out of here or trying to get home. There's got to be another access and egress in this area.
And so I can't, and so the people that are listening, again, it was Bethel Island needs another access egress for the island, and I do understand, I mean, access egress, I mean, that can be from a building to a road to a community to, I get you need more than one way out. And we speak to certain things that we can. On a parallel note is, you know, we are working hand in hand with OES. I have a battalion chief by the name of Ross McCumber. He is our prevention chief, our operations chief, and our public information officer. He's been trying to get a lot of information out. He attends, he's working with them at the disaster planning meetings we're meeting with now on a quarterly basis. We've been doing so since May of last year. We are also working with OES. We attend every month a meeting in OES. And so we're looking through all different types, everything from man-made to fire to a levee break, and identifying, and we have a long way to go. I mean, I'm telling you, we have a long way to go to be able to not only understand clearly and work well, but also to communicate effectively so everyone knows how to operate within the system. But how do the different marinas work with the fire department, the police department, with OES? How do we do these things? And we have an activation and warning system. How do we make sure we're in concert with each other? So not only getting caught up to speed on all the different areas, but we're also working and looking at what preventative measures, and then what also events do we need to pre-plan for and do tabletop exercises and understand. Look, if that station were to be built, understand if something happens here, we don't want our members to be on the inside, because the thing is now they're just adding to the situation. So we need them on the levee top and or outside, and that's why the Station 55 is, that's where we would collect, and that's where our emergency operations center would be. And we would manage and work with OES and Sheriff's Office and AMR and our resources, and we'd manage the incident, anything here, over there. And so, again, you know, that's really, it's strategically placed in that way. Very fair points, and the thing is, so I don't have it figured out, but I am actively engaged in those conversations. Please, we have 7:40.
I think you have another question.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that. Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
It was more of a statement than it was a question. The very top says, "Don't read aloud." Again, my time. I mean, again, is there any recommendations, any questions that I can have for that you guys can have?
Can you go to the TRA slide, the percentage?
Yes.
You got it.
You talk about reallocation, were you trying to change those percentages?
Let me go back, hold on, let me catch up. Well, we looked into and we're looking into multiple concepts. If we go to the white papers, it will talk about the challenges of both. Is this not the one, the TR? I'm sorry. Just say when.
More of an Excel spreadsheet.
Oh, okay, for all the cities and everyone else?
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about. Slides aren't fast. So there's been some local discussions about this and even state level discussions that have died.
That's because they're busy building a bullet train.
Well, that I can't speak to, but here's the thing. So there's been trying to define what is the amount. Let's just say 14%. Let's say a fire district needs 14%. So every fire district needs to have 14%. So in our situation, if we're at 8, that means that East Contra Costa Fire needs 6. So what we would do is we come into Contra Costa County and you take everybody and say, okay, we're going to take a certain portion from you, and you'll get 2% less, you'll get 1% less, or no, we're just going to go to this one agency and they're going to get 6% less. And that'll be channeled to East Contra Costa to give them 14.
So the only way to change the TRA percent is by robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yes. Now, but then there's another concept is, well, don't mess with the reallocation. Just focus on the future growth. So you get, as an agency, sanitary, water, school, whatever. And schools are very protected. You can't take from schools anyway. If you notice on the slide, if you guys remember the slide that talked about schools, and this is not unique.
Right.
Schools take a heavy portion, any TRA. They go heavily to schools, and schools are really protected legally to where you work with other special districts, you can do other things, but when it comes down to schools, you're not gonna touch schools. So the question is, again, if you were to, what are you going to decrease to increase? Or say, we're going to freeze agency A, B, C, or D, or E, and then future revenues will get channeled, but then you're potentially changing the problem in the future.
So you've already asked them, they all said no, probably.
We asked for voluntary.
So what does it take to change the number? Something on the ballot for everyone to vote?
In the state.
Yeah, okay, that's what.
So we got to get 2/3 majority at the state level. Well, first you have to get someone to carry and write it and say, this is what I think we need to do for a state level. And then it's got to pass, once it gets through the process at the state, then it would go to the people. And then the people throughout the state would have to do 2/3 majority. Guys, Proposition 13, I don't know, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but it's heavily interweaved into the economy of the state of California. There is also a residential side and there's a commercial side, and they lean upon each other. You mess with one, it impacts the other. If one falls, it all falls. I have not found one person that has been willing or thinking about messing with Proposition 13 with the current revenue to reallocate it or take it to the state level, push through. It's like in the state, you just go and spend one day at the Capitol. I have spent multiple, and I learned very quickly, and I saw the trend continuing. But here's the thing I want to be clear, folks, is I'm not continuing to explore. I'm not continuing to discuss. I'm not continuing to identify, well, if that's a no, what can be a yes, and what can we do? What's been made clear, though, is that the first thing that would have to be done, the state is what I'm being told with anyone that's elected at the state level, assembly member, senate, whatever it may be, says, locally, if you don't have support for reallocation, start there. So get everyone within your community and locally to say, we will do this. And then if it takes something at the state level, then we'll consider it. But you don't have your local agencies willing to cut services, to increase your services. So when you do that, then come back. And we have spoken to everybody. And we had one agency that considered it until they thought about it, and they retract their support that we would consider it. Because they really wanted to have the fire district. Yes.
I noticed on there that the two that were probably the lowest were Oakley and Brentwood.
Yes.
And both of those have their own police department.
They do.
So they're trying to fund their police departments also.
And they do.
Which I'm just saying, that's probably why
Sure.
they're lower. The other ones do not have their own police. department.
Everyone else relies Oakley, and Oakley is fairly new. Brentwood does have its own police department. They have a lot of community facility districts and they have other measures that support. There's a lot of measures that support in both to be able to do that. But yes, they do have their own police, but they do not have a fire. Here's the thing. I didn't even touch on this. But look, we've looked at everything from consolidation to actually looking at other agencies. We've looked at volunteers. We've looked at a bunch of different systems and combinations, and I can address any one of those. Consolidation, we are the most cost-effective and economically, at the lowest level to operate the way we do. No one can do what we do for what we do for. We are giving best service levels for the revenue that we receive. That's one. Number two is no agency wants to consolidate with us because we're too much of a liability of area uncovered that they don't want to bring that on. So I've been telling people very clearly, and I believe this to be true. They're saying, well, how do you consolidate then? And I said, the road to consolidation is the same as standing whole on your feet alone as an agency. At one point, agencies can become attractive enough, the agency says, we'll consolidate with you. You're an asset. We can balance each other out. There's some things that you can bring to us and things we can bring to you. So the road is the same. There's going to be a point, if we continue to increase service levels and we get to a point where we're sustainable, that opportunity may come up and the board and the community can choose if they want consolidation or not. But the pathways are the same. So we've looked at state, we've looked at that. Volunteers, I'll hit on this because it's been a big deal. I came from volunteers, I was a volunteer. I was in Oakley in the 90s. I got hired on with East Contra Costa Fire as actually one of the first employees, and the rest is history. And I ran the reserve program, the paid on call program. And when I became a battalion chief 10 years ago, I ran those programs. I taught ROP fire science at the high schools. I taught at the community college. And so here's the thing, is that hiring people in this system to be able to hire volunteers to come in to run our operation, the volunteers of today are people that want jobs. They want to get time, they want to experience, they want to get a full-time position. And they will stay with you as long enough that they need to get a job, and they'll go. So what was readily apparent is we were spending, $20,000 to train an outfit. They're on your payroll, they're on your workers' comp. Now you have to have oversight. You have to have training twice a week. And now we're having to let people go because they're not taking the training standards. And then what happens is you get an employee and you're like, well, we need you to be able to do more, but you need time. And about 1 or 2 years in, they get picked up. When they get picked up, they can't volunteer. The trend that became readily apparent is we looked over and we saw the community college district really doing the same thing. Is the community college district is training and outfitting and the whole bit. So what we're doing, and we don't have the support staff to support it today, but we're trying to figure out where the pendulum is we're saying this, community college district, let's work out an agreement where you can interview them, you can figure out who's qualified, you can run them through their academies, and when they need to do their internship, put them on our engine as the fourth person, extra hands, make lighter work, we can utilize them, we can train them, and once they get done with their internship, they can go get a job elsewhere and we'll just get the next one in. So we're not gonna, they carry the liability under, because it's a ride-along through the community college district. They give them their uniform, they give them their equipment, and we already know they've been vetted out, and we're training them and using the ability that we have. And so we're really exploring that, but someone's still gotta have oversight and maintain that program. And we don't even have a training division right now we don't have training grounds and a training division as part of an infrastructural issue we have. But if we had a training captain or training grounds, we can easily implement that program. We need a person to oversee it. So volunteers, again, want to get hired. And I understand that, okay? And so to build a system around it, you need around 40 people. You need around 40 people to man one station 24/7. 40 volunteers. And a lot of people that want to do it, the question is, why do you want to do it? How long do you want to be here? And then how is it sustainable? How's it sustainable? And if you go into, I talked about white papers on our website, you can also go to press releases. If you go through our press releases, starting from April of last year to date, they're all on there. I talk about our infrastructure. This is before we shut down the station at Knightson and tried to explain why, the problems we were having, the retention issues we were having, the equipment issues that we were having, and how we had to step back. So I clearly there's a press release that defines that. There's a press release that talks about having to invest in our infrastructure to be able to build for future growth. There's one about our position on volunteers that goes into better detail and explains the things that we tried, the results that we had. We did community surveys, we tried to get support, and the issues that were very real, and what we're planning to do when we get some support staff to make it happen. So the press releases are, I believe, to be somewhat articulate, and they can tell you exactly what we're trying to do. So the white papers and the press releases are very important. If you go about the district, our history all the way back to the 30s and 40s are in there. Again, this station, I worked at this firehouse. I worked out of the one in Oakley, I worked out of the one in Byron, I worked out of the one in Knightson, I worked out of the one in Discovery Bay. I worked those houses. And I'll tell you this, the volunteers that came before us, those men are the ones who trained me. Those are the gentlemen and the ladies, those are the shoulders that we're standing upon today. And we are the next generation of that. And so we're doing everything we can to come along them and honor them the way that they deserve to be honored. Because look, the community just grew. And the current generation, volunteering in any capacity, regardless of fire service, is harder to get. So, so consolidation, again. There's even, detaching, dissolving. So again, there's LAFCO decision about how those, decisions are made. But here's the thing. If you're going to dissolve something, you have to either maintain or make it better. And so the reality is, I'm telling you, that if this agency were to have a certain area of its jurisdiction, and or if the jurisdiction entirely were not to be here, service levels would by fact decrease. I mean, that's just the reality. Because if they're not here, they would transfer the monies in this district. They would give the $800,000, which would go here, would go back to the county in regards to Bethel Island. That can go for fire protection. We know that isn't going to take care of it. The city of Oakley would get their portion. The city of Brentwood would get their portion. And then now everyone's got to stand up their own department. And I don't want to put numbers on it, but I heard standing up a department is tens of millions of dollars, closer to 20 million, for an agency to do what they would have to do in the city of Brentwood. So again, these things have to be thought through. So hopefully I'm articulating that. So what I would like to do, before I go, yeah, what we're doing?
An orange one.
I don't know, these things keep walking up there. I don't know. Sneaky. Oh, thank you. This is just what I was going to do. So here's the thing, this is the call to action that I really want us to look at. The strategic plan, again, service levels, their priorities. Are we not looking at things to increase revenue? Is there other options that we may not look at that we need to look into to increasing revenue? So July 19th, 6 o'clock, nights in school. Community is welcome, it's encouraged. I'm asking, call your friends, call me. If anyone cares about this topic, bring there. We'll bring that information out. We'll look at it. We'll work for it on 2 months. We'll bring it back and we'll refine it again and get to a tangible plan of what we're going to do to be able to increase service levels. I welcome you if you would like, or you would like to watch. The next time I'll be in Discovery Bay at Discovery Bay School tomorrow night from 6 to 8. And then later on in the month at Brentwood and Oakley. But really the call to action, being able to help develop that plan, is going to be in July. If you can't make that, please fill out the survey, share the survey. The survey, again, is going to tell very clearly about what you think about the current service level, what you would like to see in regards to service level priorities, and recommended paths to be able to do so. And we'll kick every rock over we can.
How will that survey be sent out?
So again, that would be, we want to use every social media channel that we have. We will be sharing it with all MACs, TACs, all elected boards, and asking for them to push it out through their channels. It will also be available on the district's website via a link. And so we are going to try to share it the best that we can. For those that don't have computer access, libraries do. And you can go to a library and log on to our website and get access there.
So it's going to be done electronically?
Yes, ma'am. And I really anticipate, we actually wanted to get it out this week before these started. We want it to be right, and we want to make sure that it's clear. And I anticipate it being out, we're hoping, if not by Monday, we plan on it, start pushing it out. And in the town hall. Okay.
So that strategic planning is
everyone from all the 4 areas
Yes.
getting together.
So it's strategic planning is everybody that we serve. I'm gonna call everybody together. And that's what I also am asking. I know it's a paradigm shift. I know it's looking at things differently. But we're only as strong as our system. We're only as strong as our system. A station does not demonstrate protection level. It's a misconception because that station can be empty. It's where the resources are within the system at the time of the incident, and speed and weight matter. They matter, okay? So stations are secondary to resources in the system. All right, so the thing is, that's where in these discussions, I got asked, are you going to change the presentation for every community? No, the Q&A will be specific to the community. The presentation is the same because it's the same service to everybody. And we're community. And I'm here to serve. There's not one community that's more important than the other. Everyone that we serve is our priority. And we answer the call when we call. That's right. We do need to come together. We do need to come together. All right. Supervisor Burgess, is there anything you'd like to close off on? Or? Okay. All right. No, and again, I don't want to rush this, folks, because we do have 5 minutes to respect all of your time. Is there anything for the good of the order that I can address or do? Going once? Twice? Okay, then what I'll say is this. I will be adjourning this meeting at 7:57. But I sincerely mean this, folks, is that I appreciate every one of your time. Please share our message. If there's something we can do better to communicate, please let me know. If there's not a rock that we're kicking, point me to it so we can kick it. We want to do what we can, communicate to your elected officials, talk to our directors. But again, you can lean on me too. I mean, I am your fire chief. I take this seriously. I choose us. I choose us. I choose our community. I choose where we need to go. But the only way we can resolve this is through community. So I appreciate all your times, and please.